Here we are at Baker Hall with Josh Aronson. Thanks for meeting with us today on camera.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
Really excited to talk to you.
Likewise.
We're here at your solo show, and it's really impressive to see it in person. We were just talking about how sometimes you look at photography shows and everything's kind of given away when you're looking at it on Instagram or some other social media platform, but it's really impressive to see it in person. Just the quality of the pictures, the prints, the lighting, all the elements that you captured is really beautiful work.
Thank you.
And I'm excited to learn a little bit more about you. I know that you're originally from Canada, and you've been living here for quite some time.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I was born in Toronto, up in Canada, but I moved down here with my parents and my siblings when I was 3. So raised in Miami, lived here ever since I was sort of a person with a memory. So while Canada is home and away because a lot of my extended family is there, Miami is where I consider to be my home.
Nice. And your start in photography, was that something that you picked up in school? Did you have some sort of formal education where you learned about it? Or?
No, I wish. I'm actually self-taught, and photography for me was a way to learn about filmmaking. That was my original interest or passion. I wanted to direct movies and commercials and be a kind of like Spike Jonze type character.
Okay.
So one of the things I started studying was photography because I understood that great films had great cinematography and so on and so on. I would take a film camera with me to parties during high school and photograph my friends. And from that I developed an interest in making what were essentially digital photo books. So I would, instead of just sharing the pictures from each party on social media, I would kind of save up the best of each party over a couple weeks or a couple months. And then I would put them out on Facebook as a photo album, and I'd make a cover with like a title, and it would be in a way kind of like digital flip book or digital photo book.
Yeah.
And that kind of early experience, understanding that photography could be a tool for curating my life or displaying my life in a way that was kind of fantastical or like greater than it actually was. That really set the groundwork for me to want to explore photography more seriously and end up pursuing it as like a lifelong career passion.
Yeah, it's storytelling, kind of like in a film, but through photos, and you're piecing it together sort of in the same way.
Yeah.
It's really neat.
Yeah, absolutely. It's sort of funny to be here now, like 10 plus years later, looking at this work, which to me reads very cinematic. All the photographs are landscape, horizontal, the way a film would be, and the way I work too. My kind of methodology is super cinema-esque. These are staged images as opposed to documents or observational photographs that I've just made while walking along the street. So I think a lot of that early influence and early passion for film, led to this.
Really cool. And have you always shot film?
Yeah. I mean, in the beginning, I was shooting film and playing around on digital cameras too. But I think very early on, I became fascinated by the texture of film. I love the relationship that shooting analog allows me to have with older photography. And when I think about my favorite photographs, they're pretty well always photographs made on film by other photographers. And why not try to emulate that? And so I've fallen in love with the whole analog process generally. So what we're seeing here is work that I shot on a film camera, and then you're seeing an array of different prints. So these are inkjet prints that are made from scans of film, but then on the assemblage board there are handprints that are made in the darkroom.
Oh wow! You printed them yourself?
No, I work with a really talented hand printer who helps me to make the analog prints.
Amazing. And what kind of camera are you using? Do you mind me asking? Is that kind of a trick question?
I don't mind. I feel like, there's no point to being kind of like gatekeepy about that information, because the truth is, like, I can tell you the film and the camera and the lens and all this stuff, but it's really not about that. It's about your vision and how you see the world and how you want to use those tools. So I work with a Pentax 645.
Okay, so it's medium format. Okay, amazing. Yeah. I was wondering how you're able to get these prints so clear and so large and still so perfect.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the medium format helps. Having that a little bit of extra detail in the thing helps.
Very cool.
The way you scan, the way I scan my film, I think lends itself to having the prints to having more detail. But yeah, I'm a bit of a nerd about all that stuff.
That's really cool.
And I sense that you're kind of into that stuff too.
Yeah, I do enjoy learning about it.
Yeah. I'm
not a great photographer, but I love hearing about people's process and their gear and stuff like that. So,
yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, there's like an infinite number of ways to go about getting from a film negative to what you see on a wall.
Yeah.
And I think what's great about doing exhibitions as a younger artist who's still kind of figuring things out is that each time I can try something new and experiment and hopefully get closer to figuring out what it is that I like or what my thing is going to be.
That's really neat. And I remember reading in your Vogue piece, which was amazing, by the way, that you talked about a process of about 5 years. Some of these images you didn't look at for quite a while. What is the story behind that? Why did you kind of put it away for so long? And can you explain that?
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. Essentially, my thinking about photography is that there are two modes of being a photographer. There's the working mode, where I'm going out and staging images, doing the research to make them happen.
Yeah.
And then there's sort of the editing mode, where I'm looking at what I've done and trying to understand the issues or themes or things that I'm addressing in my work, and also just selecting from this large body of photographs what it is that I want to share and show. So to me, the ideal method is to not conflict the two, to give each their own space and time. And my thinking during this project was, why not just keep photographing and continue going on road trips and making pictures, and then just stick them in a drawer, and then one day when I feel I'm ready to get into the sequencing and editing mindset, I can open that drawer, develop that film, start to really look at it.
And what was the trigger for that made you say, I've reached that point?
Yeah, well, honestly, it was a financial trigger. I wanted to continue making this work and going on road trips, but they're expensive to pull off, and so I was interested in finding grant funding to continue making the work. And in order to get funding, I needed a proof of concept. So I started to develop the film and apply for some grants. And that kind of process led to 2 commissions I got last year in 2024, one of which was through the Green Family Foundation and Green Space Miami up in the Mimo neighborhood. They commissioned 10 or 12 artists to make new work and share it in a group show. So I was a part of their group show last year and showed a couple of images from the series. And then the other opportunity that came from all those applications was with the city of Miami Beach and their no vacancy.
Okay, I saw about that,
Yeah.
What was the hotel that you got chosen for?
It was the Catalina. It's the Catalina Hotel in Beach Club. So it's an older hotel, a historic hotel on Miami Beach. And what's so amazing is that each of the artists who get selected for that program are invited to transform the hotel in collaboration with the staff there and create a sort of immersive art experience. So for me, it was an opportunity to make my largest print I'd ever made. I showed something like a 300 by 250 inch print, printed on fabric, one of the works from this series, and in tandem with that, I created a photo book library, a sort of reading room where people could come in and look at books by Florida artists and Florida photographers who had inspired me in my own work.
Did you have your own book there? I understand you printed a sort of zine, but self-published.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. My book Tropicana was there, which was nice for folks because that book's been sold out or out of print for some time, and so I wanted people to have an opportunity to look at it. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So cool. And do you plan on reprinting that or making a second edition or something?
Yeah, I'd like to. I would love to reissue it and maybe do it a little bit differently than I originally did. Mm-hmm. The original version is a soft cover, digitally printed book, and so it'd be nice to reissue it, maybe in a hardcover and do an offset printing with a higher kind of caliber of print quality. But right now, book-wise, I'm more so focused on this series, this body of work.
Yeah. Well, those are some really great opportunities you got through the grants you were searching for.
Thank you.
It sounds amazing.
Yeah, it was amazing, and to be honest with you, as I was saying earlier, this project is or was expensive to pull off. Taking a road trip with a group of people and feeding them and making sure they're all housed and taken care of isn't cheap, and so one of the reasons I'm so grateful for those opportunities in 2024 was that one of them came with an opportunity to win 2 prizes. So the No Vacancy, the City of Miami Beach program awards a prize to the artist whose work is chosen by the people, by anyone to be the sort of people's choice, and then they also award a juror's prize. So they have art professionals like museum curators vote on the most kind of successful installation. For the first time ever, the both awards went to one single installation, and that was the piece that I did.
Get out of here!
Yeah,
that's so cool.
It was wild.
Oh my gosh, you're just on a tear right now. It seems like you've got, amazing momentum. But I've seen some of your list of work that you've done: Dolce & Gabbana, BMW, Puma, and Adidas. Like, that's really cool. You've got a really amazing sort of legacy that you're leaving behind here.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm lucky that what I do in my art practice and my passion also translates to my work and my career. So when I'm not making this work, I'm operating as a working photographer, and I get to work with exciting brands and magazines like the ones that you mentioned.
And how did that work out? When you worked or just have this piece in Vogue? Can you talk about that hustle or that process to get to that level? I'm sure it can't be easy, but
yeah, I'd love to share about it. I got my start really in photography by pitching myself, and it's something that as an emerging photographer, I think it's absolutely essential because there are infinite numbers of photographers in the world, and yet we all want a platform and we want to be published and we want to share our work with the world too. So in 2016, I started pitching ideas that I had for magazine stories to magazine editors. My first kind of idea was to do a profile of 10 young emerging artists here in Miami and how they were shaping the Miami art scene with their work outside of Art Basel. So the whole kind of elevator pitch was like, let's look beyond Basel to what's happening here in Miami, year round. And I sent a cold email to an editor at ID Magazine, and I was lucky that they were interested and they picked up the story. And from there, I became interested in continuing that process of pitching and finding outlets for the work I wanted to make. I sort of figured like I might be a decent photographer, but like we were saying earlier, there's millions of photographers out in the world, so what can I offer that they can't? And I figured it might be my ideas. I could sort of come up with a couple ideas and do a bit of the work of the editor for them, and in exchange they might find one of those ideas interesting and invite me to photograph the magazine. So over the years, one magazine saying yes allowed me to then have the confidence to go to another one and sort of more prestigious one. And what's nice is that if you're a working photographer and you get your stuff published in magazines, that's where the creative directors or photography directors and brands are looking. So
makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So by shooting for ID or the New York Times or whoever, I was able to then get people like Addidas or BMW, to get their eyes on the work and be commissioned to make stuff for them too.
Very cool.
Thank you.
Congratulations. I mean, it's really great. You're really, like I said, you've got some wonderful momentum, and it seems like with this project, the Florida Boys, that concept of reaching out to these people that you didn't know and inviting them on road trips was really a good gamble, because you captured some very unique moments here. And can you talk about the preparation to find these locations and sort of stage these scenarios? Is that like, do you sketch it out? Do you sort of take pictures with your phone? What's your process? I'm really curious about this picture here, where the guys are on these sort of cypress tree roots. How did you get that shot? You had to get into the water, I guess.
Yeah. So.
I'm sorry, I asked you like 5 questions.
No, it's okay. We can start there, and I'll kind of circle back to what you were asking earlier. Essentially, that photograph was made at a lake called Lake Norris, which has cypress trees all around the sort of the edges of the lake. Okay. And they appear like they're growing up from out of the water. It's really, really beautiful. And in order to access the trees in the lake in general, you need some kind of kayak or canoe or paddleboard. And I don't own one of those, but thankfully the county that operates that lake has canoe rentals, and you essentially mail them a $50 check. They hold the check. They give you a code to unlock the canoes. And so after we've driven 3-4 hours to this location, we've parked and then hiked another 30-40 minutes to get to the shore. We then put a code into this lock, get the canoe, and I would shuttle each of the guys to the trees.
I was gonna say, because they're all pretty dry. You can't see them.
Yeah. I mean, it's surreal, right? Like, it's sort of an impossible picture in a way, and I like that. I like that this work uses the Florida landscape as a set or backdrop for imagining a fantasy. I also think of the Greek myth of the sirens, who would sort of hang out on the shore of the ocean and greet sailors or soldiers as they were coming back into the shore. And to me, these are like the Florida sirens, waiting to greet somebody. But also, what I find so captivating about that photograph is the way that it deals with a very real problem for us as Floridians, which is sea level rise. And I love that this work not only kind of shows off Florida landscapes and how beautiful and interesting they are, but also brings to mind, for me at least, the ideas of these landscapes as being super fragile. There's often pictures in the series that show things, being submerged or water levels rising. Just in this kind of area right here, I see a scene where all the water appears to be like drying up, and I can imagine that being something that happened, after like a horrible kind of rise in temperatures, where like Florida landscapes are drying out, and so yeah, it's pretty all back to your question though. There is a kind of process that I developed over the course of making this work, which started with my interest in just seeing Florida, more generally. I grew up down here in South Florida, in the suburbs of Miami, but I rarely explored the rest of the state. I'd go to Orlando or Broward or maybe down to the Keys, but I wasn't often spending time in like the Springs or in North Florida or around Central Florida. And when I moved back to Miami in 2020, I became interested in deepening my relationship to Florida, which had already become a sort of muse for me in my photographs. And so I used photography as an excuse to go around and see the state and experience all these beautiful natural areas. And I'd spent a lot of time, scrolling through Instagram hashtags like Visit Florida or Florida Wild, as well as going through travel blogs or old kind of roadside guides. And from there I'd find locations I'd be interested in. I'd set out on a scout by myself. I'd visit, over a dozen locations in a certain area, and then kind of build out a map of, where I wanted to go when I had, the collaborators with me, and then sort of, build out our experience from there.
Wow, really neat. Yeah, and gosh, the timing to get some the quality of light on these photos had to be just right. Did that take a lot of trial and error, or from your scouting, you kind of figured out when you wanted to be there?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I had a sort of ideal time in mind, but all this work is a kind of collaboration with the Florida environment and the weather. You never know what you're going to get here. So I'd set out with an ideal time. We'd improvise from there. But often it was the case that a place I would visit and think would be great for, let's say, a scene where you have some guys and there's half of them are walking across this bridge and the other half are on this kind of little island. I would go in intending to make that kind of picture, and once we got to the location a couple weeks after my scout, it might be the case that the river levels had risen so much that you couldn't cross this bridge anymore, and that suddenly we would have to fabricate our own bridge, or it might be raining, or you kind of
gotta pivot.
Yeah. So I feel like my work, which belongs to this sort of staged narrative tradition of photography, that artists like Gregory Crutzen or Jeff Wall or Justine Kurland or Ryan McGinley belong to. I think it takes that kind of idea of let's stage a picture that we've imagined, a vision that we have, and it updates that. It modernizes it in a way, because while I do have very concrete ideas for the pictures I want to make, I'm also very much open to chance and collaborating with the weather and the environment. And
sometimes those might work out to be the best pictures. Right?
It's true. It's so true. Yeah, the ones that I least anticipated or expected to make, are often my favorites. And to that point too, I might have an idea for staging or blocking, but it was when everybody got comfortable and sort of brought to the picture their own, little spin, that things actually became super interesting. So my ideas might have been good, but it was what my collaborators brought that was even better, even more kind of exciting.
And did most of them have experience in photography as far as being models or that kind of thing?
I think it wasn't always the case, but it was often the case that these guys had been on camera before in some capacity. So when I'm scouting, when I'm casting, I'm thinking about working with people who are creatives themselves. I love that whether you're a model or just doing something creative in your life, you have a generally more open-minded perspective than most. And that for me is ideal in terms of collaboration, because I want to work with people who are gonna be creative and open-minded and bring their own ideas and interesting insights to the work. But I'd also be, looking for people who reminded me of myself in some way. So maybe we had similar long curly hair, maybe we had similar aesthetics or interests. So these guys had been on camera, but also in a lot of ways I was looking for other versions of myself. And you could say that these pictures are kind of autobiographical or self-portraits, where I'm using these young men as kind of surrogates of myself, and trying to explore things that I'm interested in, or things that I want to unpack with them.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Photographs, yeah.
Very cool. And I remember reading that you said that they're all first generation, meaning first generation North American, the children of immigrants. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't know if I could say every single person was, but I think often it was the case. Yeah, and more, specifically, I found that the people I worked with had never really explored this side of the state. much in the same way that I hadn't. I'm a first generation American. As we said earlier, I was born in Canada, but my parents and their parents are from the Middle East and Eastern Europe, and so I come from a bit of a lineage of people who have moved from country to country or continent to continent and had to make home and assimilate and find comfort in spite of like not having real roots there. And it seemed to be that the people I was photographing had similar experiences. So what was kind of special was that because they'd never been up to the springs or gone swimming in a river or climbed trees in that way, we were kind of creating these new core memories for each other on these trips, but also we were, you could say, like writing ourselves into the landscape and into those experiences, right? Like, to me, there's something very American.
So we were talking about the group of models that you brought along with you, all kind of sharing this unique experience of exploring, these natural wonders of Florida together for the first time.
I was just thinking like what we just experienced, which was like a little bit of a technical difficulty or like a break in the momentum or the creative exchange we were having. I was thinking about how emblematic that is of like what it's like to make a project like this. I've been photographing these pictures over the last 5 years, and it wasn't the case that like I got to just work on this and only focus on this.
I was going to ask you that. That's interesting. Yeah, glad you brought that up.
Yeah, I think the beauty of pursuing something long term is that I gave myself time to come in and out of this project, just like we had to kind of come in and out of the video. And what I mean by that is, I would maybe take 2 trips and then spend a couple months, working on other photography things or other life things even, and then I would kind of get the itch again to get back on the road, or I'd save up enough money to go back on another trip. And so it was never consistent, but I was always thinking about it. I was always I like to say that I kind of like consume reference material and inspiration, and then once I kind of reach a breaking point, it's time to go out and make things. So I would when I'm not making this stuff, I would consume all kinds of things that inspired this work.
Right. Makes sense. It's really cool to be able to take that break to recharge and sort of reinvigorate your interest in the project and bring new ideas to the table. This photo, taken at night around the tree, was that with the automobile lights?
No, that photograph is made with a flash, an on-camera flash.
Wow. Yeah. So bright, I wouldn't imagine you could create that much of a light with your flash. Just the flash?
Yeah, just the flash. As you can see, pretty much all of these photographs are made just with natural light. And I was pretty hesitant to use anything artificial, but it happened that we got to that location, which is called Shired Island. It's a gorgeous beach up on the west coast of Florida, where there are all these kind of driftwood trees, like you see the one that they're climbing on there. And we got there, we were photographing, but the light was quickly disappearing. And by the time we had found that tree and I was really interested in making that picture, the light was completely gone. And that was a beautiful moment because I was with 4 other photographers, young photographers who are a group of friends themselves. It was the one time when I went out on a trip and the people actually knew each other very well, and I knew them too. And so they, being photographers, all had their cameras and all had their flashes, and they invited me to throw one of their flashes on my camera and just give it a shot. So, I sort of figured, why not?
Sure.
Yeah.
You never know. Yeah, it's good. Just it's another kind of off the cuff moment there. And this one with the Mohawk character and the lighter, that's a really beautiful shot too.
Thank you. Yeah, that has car headlights, lighting up the bushes behind him. But I always wanted to make a picture with a pond around sunset or twilight, and we stumbled on that pond completely accidentally. You know, I never scouted that place. It was the case that I had scouted somewhere deep in this area called Green Swamp, and we drove there, drove 4 or 5 hours from Miami to get there, and once we were there, we had to hike another hour or so into the Green Swamp Preserve to reach this location. And what was funny is that we tried to drive like from the edge of the swamp in, because we didn't want to have to walk with all our gear and stuff. And when we went to kind of find an entrance, we also stumbled into a guy who seemed to know the area pretty well, and he recommended we go check out this phosphate mine once we were done. So we followed his recommendation. We went to this phosphate mine. It was really cool, and that was where we found this pond. And so, kind of on a whim, on the fly, I decided to make that picture. Where you see the pond and the sun is really already set.
So cool. And well, Josh, I love everything you've put together for this show, and the concept, bringing these guys together, some of them that you never met before. It's really interesting to consider how impactful it must have been. Are you still friends with some of these fellows?
Yeah, definitely. We've all remained friends, and they've come to the openings, to see the work, which is really exciting. I'm very blessed in that they've been super generous with me by not demanding to see the work,
Ahead of the openings.
Ahead of the openings, but even more specifically, like, we just live in a time where, like, you do a photo shoot and you probably get to see the results within a week or two.
Sure.
And it was, the case that these guys didn't see this stuff for years.
Yeah.
So I'm super blessed that they were, generous with me and allowed me to do that and take my time. But yeah, they're all now good friends, and
I imagine so.
I think we all shared like a cool kind of core memory. It was almost like we all went to summer camp or something.
Right. Is there any one particular location that stands out to you, like your favorite location or favorite moment from all these photos? They're just all amazing. I want to say that I don't think I've ever been to any of these places.
Yeah, well, I hope that the work inspires you and others to go see some of these spots. I'm not an activist per se, an artist activist, but I do love this landscape, and I know that it's in part under threat. And so if I can use my work as a way to advocate for it, or to inspire others to go out and advocate for it, then I feel like I've done a bit of my part. But as far as a favorite, it's hard to choose. I really do love the spot right behind me. I don't know if you guys can see it on there, but it's a photograph made on this beach with all of these gorgeous, shapely rocks that are kind of jutting out from the sand. And I love that image because it leaves a lot of questions for me. It's also one that I had a very concrete vision for when I found that spot, and others are much more kind of spontaneous or collaborative. And that was one that I, for whatever reason, thought, man, I really want to see what it's like when a kid is getting water poured on this rock. And there's something sort of like punk and badass and like disturbing about that.
Lord of the Flies kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah, and I feel like that's that kind of angst is a part of boyhood too, and so I don't want to shy away from, in addition to showing these more tender, or playful, or imaginative moments, showing some of those kind of angstier ones. So, yeah, that's a place called Washington Oaks Garden. It's on the east coast of Florida, near St. Augustine.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's really nice. Yeah, it doesn't look like something you'd see in Florida.
Yeah, I agree. It's sort of a bit more West Coast California-esque.
Yeah, or even like Europe, like, I don't know, somewhere along the Basque Coast or something.
Definitely.
Amazing. Yeah, interesting to, have something from concept to execution, and your vision is achieved, right?
Yeah. It's sort of like photography can be a way to make my vision real, or my fantasies, real, even if it's not real, it's at least made physical. Yeah,
most definitely. Josh, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today, and your patience through some of the challenges that we had, and your ability to just kind of pick up again and keep it going.
Yeah, my pleasure, Steve. Thank you for having me. Thanks for coming by the show and for your interest. I really appreciate it.
We're psyched. Well, we're gonna keep an eye out for. One more thing before we go. Have you got something coming up this art week that we can talk about?
Yeah, nothing specific this art week. I had a really big one last year, so I'm kind of taking it easy. Baker Hall, the gallery, will be at NADA, the art fair in Miami. So go check them out. But no, I'm gonna be taking it easy and
enjoying the art yourself.
Yeah,
That's great.
Yeah, how about you?
About the same. Yeah.
Great.
Definitely going to NADA, Untitled are two of my favorites.
Yeah. Likewise. Well, I'll see you out there.
I'll see you there.
Sweet, man. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much.